So very good evening to everyone who has joined us today on this. So this is basically a podcast series started by a social media community called Physical Therapists in the USA. And the intent and the purpose of this entire podcast is this community wants physical therapists to go out, talk about the wonderful work they are doing, talk about technology integration that is happening in physical therapy, talk about the challenges that typically come associated with being a physical therapist or a owner of a physical therapy practice. And since this is the first episode, I'm super delighted to share that I'm joined by two very young, very dynamic physical therapists on this podcast, Dr. Vaishali Parmar and Dr. Cherisha Koradia. As for myself, I am associated with a company called Remassis. Remassis is a California headquartered health tech company which focuses on developing technology led solutions, leveraging telemedicine, leveraging artificial intelligence and machine learning. And we are currently working on a product which helps improve the lives of practicing physical therapists, practicing doctors. And at the same time, it also makes the lives of patients easier by helping the doctors and the patients communicate, engage with each other in a way which I would call is more humanized than typically what is happening right now, which is mostly automated, which is mostly bot led. But at the end of the day, we also do not want to increase the time pressure that is already there on doctors, on physical therapists. So I'll talk more about what we are doing, the kind of challenges that we are facing as entrepreneurs while we are building a product sitting between California in the US and Bangalore in India. But I will now like to move the spotlight to the guests for today, the heroes for today, the champions for today, Dr. Cherisha and Dr. Vaishali. So talking to you first, Dr. Cherisha, I think a brief introduction would be in order to understand what you have done till now. What are your aspirations from physical therapy going forward, especially coming from India to the US? And what is the plan for the future?
Definitely. Thank you so much, Arunabh. I'm excited to be on this platform. So I have been a physical therapist trained in India back in 2002. So it's been a long journey. I would say almost 16 years being in the clinical setting. The motivation to be a physical therapist came back in 99 when I saw my granddad be seen by a therapist at home after a knee surgery. He loved his daily walks on Marine Drive. That's where I'm from. And, I just saw how the therapist got him back to walking when he was limited to being home. So that's where my journey began. I came to the United States, did my master's, my doctorate, and then I've been working from ground up as a PT in a small clinic all the way up as a rehab director now for a larger organization.
Fantastic. So, Dr. Vaishali, if you could talk a little bit about your journey thus far, and then we
Sure.
can.
So thanks for having me. I'm the owner of Mobile Physiocare. We provide physical therapy services in patients' home. So we bring outpatient setting at home. I have been working as a PT for last 13 years. I have been working in, I have worked in different settings from outpatient to long-term care, skilled nursing facility. I did my bachelor's from Bombay, India. I came to United States to pursue an MBA in 2008. While pursuing my MBA, I also got my PT license, and I started working as a physical therapist. Eventually, I got my doctorate, and I'm also certified exercise expert in aging adults. So again, just like Cherisha, I started as a staff PT. Eventually, I was working as a lead therapist, and before I started my own setup, I was working as a rehab director.
So very interesting because you have worked in different positions as a professional across multiple physical therapy practices. And now that you're running your own practice. So how old is Mobile Physiocare as a company?
6 months old. It's quite new. I just started off yeah.
So I think in that sense, you're best placed to talk about this. So what is, like, obviously when you're moving from being an employee to being an employer, and that is a journey that we are also doing right now. And it is obviously fraught with a lot of challenges. But basis your 6 months experience, if you were to pick up, say, one biggest challenge, what would it be?
I think because I was trying to learn everything, I was trying to do everything by myself just to start my LLC, doing company registration or getting in network with all the insurance companies, getting registered with the insurance companies. So because I was doing I was not hiring a system or someone to do all those things for me. It was lengthy process, time consuming, but it was again for me, I need to know in and out about everything. That's my personality. So initially, just because I had to go back, maybe see some YouTube videos or get all the information to how to set up my business, how to open an LLC, how to register myself in New Jersey. So it was very time consuming, I would say. And also, there are a lot of things involved, right? When you set up an LLC or start your own clinic. So there is documentation, registration, even getting patient information. So you need a system in place. So yeah, first 3 months were very challenging, but again, now it is, since past 3 months, it is getting better.
So interesting. And I think a lot of people in the audience who would be coming from the physical therapy background and who would be wanting to start up a practice of their own would find, already in the process of starting a practice of their own, would really resonate with what you're saying. Dr. Cherishas, I'm actually curious. So you guys studied in India and then you also came to the US. And now that you have already worked extensively across multiple physical therapy practices, you're a director of Rehabilitation Services. How easy or how difficult is it to move up the ladder in the US? So India is something that I can talk about and I can relate to, but how easy or how difficult it is for a physical therapist to actually move up the ladder? How quickly does it happen? What does it take?
I think this is a really great question, specifically not just for PTs, but any kind of healthcare professional. As you may know, most of the upper positions are usually taken over by people who've had multiple years of experience. The person's position that I took was in that position for 22 years. So to go up that chain, because there are not that many roles in management, is definitely very difficult. And then in terms of diversification, say if you were an engineer, I'm again stereotyping, but say if you're an engineer, there's so many different avenues that you can choose. But in PT, it's either you're a clinician or you are a manager. And then even in a manager role, you still need to be a clinician. So there's not a lot of trajectory. And that's why, from my experience, a big chunk of PTs, OTs, dentists want to start their own practice because there's more work satisfaction, a good work-life balance, and the accountability to yourself rather than an organization. So I think that the challenge, there's always great opportunities, but the scope or the jumps that you can make are limited.
Interesting. And so, Dr. Vaishali, you have been there, you have also done that. You have worked as a professional before taking this big entrepreneurial leap. If I were to take you back, say a few years, then compare it with where you are today. So obviously you are an independent entrepreneur. There are a lot of advantages that come along with being an entrepreneur, running your own practice. But what is one thing that you miss? So as a professional, what is one thing that you had which you currently don't have as an entrepreneur?
I mean, I miss socializing with my team, I would say. It's just because now I'm like, it's just me. And I usually go to patients, like I do home visit. So I don't have the team yet. But other than that, because it was a bigger organization, we had the system in place. We had a software we used to use to save patients' information, or EMR system. So yeah, that way it is kind of a little challenging when I'm trying to, like, get patients, try to save patients' information, and trying to, for example, like, say if I have to do documentation and the progress report is due like 10th visit. Usually if you have a system in place, they'll remind you, okay, the 10th visit, you're supposed to do the note. Over here, I have to put a calendar where I have to mark a date. So it's like more work involved, like more like manual work involved. But again, it is just because it's just me right now. So eventually I'll need a system, I'll need like more people who can like take care of those part of like the operating part of the business.
So this is like music to my ears. What I've been hearing for the last few minutes is how you're struggling with all this manual processes, the manual systems. And without intending to blow my own trumpet, this is what we specialize in Remassis, where we try to automate as many parts of the process as possible so that paperwork can be reduced to a bare minimum, and your lives as owners of physical therapy practices or part of physical therapy teams can become much more easier. So moving on, Dr. Cherisha, one question that I had, since you have also been there, done that, you have actually moved up from the corporate ladder, you have done multiple roles, and now that you are in the position of a director, so now obviously there's a team reporting into you. One question that always continues to baffle me, and especially for people who are managing large size teams or mid size teams, is how do you measure the productivity? So how would you know that a certain team member is more effective or a certain team member is less productive than another team member? So are there metrics that you guys have in place, or how does it work?
Yes. So in a skilled nursing facility where I am at, there are metrics in place. A schedule has been provided to the therapist. The software already gives the therapist a projected time in facility, which means that this is the time you need to be done with your day. So say I gave a therapist 6 hours, 50 minutes of patient care, then in order to be productive, they need to be out by 8 hours. Now, productivity is set by different companies. Each company has their own metrics. So say a company that I work for has a productivity standard of 88% for therapists or 90% for assistants. Another company may have it at 85%. In the hospital settings, the percentage is differently calculated, and similarly, even in outpatient settings. But heavy emphasis on productivity is at skilled nursing facilities and acute care settings, and usually the software does that. The two big softwares that are being used currently in a skilled nursing facility, I can name them, but those are the ones that usually would do the work for us. So as Vaishali was mentioning, where she has to do a lot of stuff manually, fortunately, my life is automated.
That's very interesting. And on that note itself, so today, if you go to LinkedIn, or today when you go to social media platform, one subject that is really blazing, one subject that a lot of people are talking about, debating, brainstorming, people are criticizing, is something called work-life balance. And I'm seeing this discussion happening a lot in the US, a lot in India also. How important is work-life balance for you, and how do you currently maintain your work-life balance?
I don't have a work-life balance, which is the challenge. Which is the challenge. So, as you mentioned, right, you touch the points about productivity. The productivity not only just applies to the therapist, but it even applies to me being in a management role, which means that in addition to managing, I'm probably doing some percentage of treating or teaching, because I do have students all year round. Um, and that means I'm bringing work home. And then documentation is a nightmare, because the softwares that are out there, specifically in the skill setting or even in the hospital setting, is all to be done on a computer. And I may sound crazy, but it's all only supported by Windows. I have a Mac device at home and it won't work on a Mac. There have been days where I've forgotten to bring my laptop home and driven to work at 10:30 at night because I needed a Windows machine. So yes, I feel like the work-life balance can get better if these systems, these automation devices, or even the softwares can be made more accessible and easier to use. So we are hoping that you guys will have an awesome solution coming up.
Absolutely. So I think, and this is, if there is anyone in the audience who comes from the technology side of the business, from the software side of the business, I think this is a problem that I have heard across industry, and we would have spoken close to 300, 350 physical therapists in the last few months. And we are hearing this again and again, where honestly, these systems sound a bit of archaic kind of systems, where they have not been designed for multiple systems at a go. And this feedback is something that we have straight away integrated into what we are building. And you guys have already seen some demonstrations. We would continue to build on it. We would continue to work on making lives easier, both for physical therapists as well as for their patients. Dr. Vaishali, let's talk a bit about Mobile Physiocare. So your entrepreneurial venture, your baby, how big is it? Where it is right now? Do you have a team? We have heard about the challenges that you're facing in terms of the amount of paperwork, amount of manual work that is involved. And we obviously will be developing a solution. We obviously will be helping you out there. But I just wanted to understand, what does the team look like right now? And then you can also talk about the work-life balance.
Sure. So right now, I'm just like one woman army, you can say. It's just me. I'm working as a clinician, and also I'm taking care of billing the patient, scheduling the patients, and also making sure that I'm getting reimbursed for the patients I'm billing for. So yeah, I don't have, it's just me for now, but I'm in the process of hiring more therapists. Hopefully by end of next month, I'll have a company where I can outsource my billing as well, and would have like an assistant who can help me with the patient scheduling and like whatnot. So yeah, I mean, it's not a big team currently. It's just me.
Interesting. And so you said that most of the work that you're doing currently is not automated, it's more manual. So, and this is, since I'm a number guy, I come from a technology background. So this is something that intrigues me a lot. When you talk about, say, you consult a patient, say a patient comes to you, you do an entire physical therapy session, which lasts, say, about 60 minutes. What part of that 60 minutes would you be spending on the paperwork, the documentation, and what part would you be spending on the actual session?
So ideally, I would prefer it to spend in that 60-minute session, like 5 minutes I can spend doing my notes, not even 5. My ideal time should be like 2 to 3 minutes. Like say after after I'm done with my session, I can go back to car and just like, do my documentation, and I'm done for the day for that patient. But currently I have to come home. I have everything on Excel sheets. So I come home and do documentation, and I spend at least an hour doing my notes, and plus then billing them, and then making sure that I have billed the right patient. So it takes at least 2 to 2.5 hours in addition to seeing the patient. Yeah.
Wow. So that's almost like 30% of your total consultation time.
Yes.
And I can be, so the reason I asked this question is that the community, the social media community that I'm a part of, which is called Physical Therapists in the USA, we had done a survey where we had close to about, I think, 100 odd respondents, 100 odd physical therapists, and majority of them actually said that they end up spending about 20 to 30% of their time in a session on paperwork, on documentation, which honestly sounds unfathomable for me, sounded very, very surprising, shocking to an extent. And I really hope that what we are building at Remassis, or what new gen tech startups are building, would be able to bring this down to less than 10%. So, Dr. Cherisha, I have a question for you, since now you are in the role of managing a team. So, how big your team is right now? How many people would typically be reporting into you?
15 people right now.
15. So, would you call yourself a micromanager, or would you call yourself as someone who has more of a 360-degree view, and you would give independence to your team to do their work?
That's how I am. I'm more of a aerial view. All my therapists, I give them the leeway that they need to do. Of course, there's constructive feedback provided as we go. But yes, definitely not a micromanager, because I feel like the therapists already have so much on their plate. They don't want someone breathing down their neck.
Interesting, but uh, what is one big challenge, especially with someone who's managing a 15-member team? What if, and obviously there are challenges that come associated with managing a team, but if you were to pick one of the biggest challenge in terms of team management, in terms of workflow automation, what would it be?
I think the biggest challenge is being able to understand everyone's style, because every person has a different way of doing it. There's no set standard. And then in the current setting where I am at, it's the frustrations of documentation. We love seeing patients. I think Vaishali can agree with me. We can see as many patients as you want to give us. If we didn't have to write a single note in a day, that would be a real ideal world. And that is the challenge. I mean, labor laws are strict in the United States. We never want a therapist working off the clock. It is an hourly position that usually my team is on. And when I see that they're sitting off the clock trying to do documentation, that's a big no. And if there's anything I can do to help make that documentation easier, that's my job. Unfortunately, audits are a big part of the healthcare world. Most insurances are just figuring how not to pay us for what we do, which means that you have to spend time on documentation to make your note look super strong and solid. Um, so everything just boils down to the happiness of the therapist, in order to make sure that their day runs smoothly. They don't feel like they are being burnt out, because healthcare burnout is a big thing right now.
So very interesting and very valid points, and I would just love to keep harping about how I love what you're saying, how you guys are literally feeling harassed by the amount of documentation that you need to do. And I'm very confident that Remassis and along with similar companies, we would be able to help you tackle this challenge, which continues to remain. While there have been softwares which are as old as 30, 40 years in the physical therapy domain. But what comes as a surprise is that none of them have been able to reduce the amount of time spent on documentation, which honestly is a little surprising. Now, when I talk about, since we are talking about technology, we are talking about digitization. From a company like yours, which is a pretty sizable company, uh, obviously discovery on Google, getting promoted, getting known to potential customers becomes very, very important for an organization like yours. So are you directly involved in the marketing bit, in the digital promotion bit, or is there an independent team that handles all this for you?
So most of our digital stuff comes through like a marketing company, I mean, a marketing division of the company. So I'm not involved in that. in terms of like use of software, again, because there is like two big giants in the field of a skilled nursing facility, there's really not much choice out there. So yeah, we just try within the company itself, we'll try and streamline the processes or customize the particular forms that we are using by talking to those software providers. But other than that, I really have no say.
Sure. So, Dr. Vaishali, now that you're running your own setup for the last 6 months, obviously, apart from the fact that you have to build a team, you have to develop your own standard operating procedures, operations manual, you need to have a software and technology in place. But obviously, at the end of the day, if you're building a business and not just a physical therapy business, but if you're building a business, one of the most important questions that you need to answer is, now that the business is there, the infrastructure is there, the technology is there, how do I get my customers? So what are you doing in terms of marketing, especially today, because Google is the most powerful marketing tool, and being discoverable on Google is something that everybody wants, whether he's running a small grocery shop or he's running a large hospital, everybody wants to be discovered on Google. So how are
Right.
you going about marketing your practice?
So I have developed a website, and I also have a YouTube channel called Physiocare with Dr. V. I have Insta page, Facebook page, I have LinkedIn page. But again, I'm just like, my company is just 6 months old. I have someone who is taking care of SEO and the for the website, but I'm in the process of hiring someone who can help me with social media marketing, because for the first 3 months I had time to make content, so I was posting like every week and trying to like get like things out. But since past 3 months I have been like really busy with my patients. I really have no time to like, focus on marketing anymore. Again, I do go to like medical offices because my niche is geriatric population. Like, I have a lot of patients who are older, or the patients with disability. So I go to medical offices and I just introduce myself and let them know about my company. So that way, like, that is like I would say the biggest part of my like marketing strategy. Like, that is what is working out for me currently.
So, like you said, you are a one woman army right now at this point in time. So you are attending to your patients, you are visiting these medical offices, you are creating your own reels, you have your own YouTube channel, you're managing your social media marketing. So how many hours do you have in a day? Is it like a 28 hours day, 30 hours day? How do you make this work?
So as I said, like initially it was easier because I didn't have many patients. Now, since past 3 months, I have been pretty busy because I have like full day work. So I haven't been able to focus on marketing much. But again, what I try to do is as soon as I know that I have a couple of discharges, say by next week, I start getting in touch with my the medical offices, and I start networking. I start like, more I start focusing more on marketing, kind of. But again, it is not sustainable, to be honest. Like I need to have a system like that or in place, considering marketing, for sure. Yeah.
So digital marketing is closest to my heart, and would definitely love to help you there. But since we are talking about challenges, and obviously you are a very young organization at this point in time, so you would be confronted with various kinds and sizes of challenges that you're currently dealing with. And there would be quite a few challenges that still remain unresolved. But if I were to pick up one challenge out of these numerous challenges that you're currently facing, which one would it be which would make your life possibly much more livable, make it much more easier? So what is one challenge that remains unresolved for you, which you would want to surely get handled in the next couple of months or so?
I think social media, like marketing. Yeah, that is, I think, the biggest challenge for me. And secondly, definitely I need software or the system where I can save all my patients' information, documentation, billing. I hope somebody could make a system where everything is in one place, because most of the systems that I have been working with, they have like different system to save patients information, like say insurance and the insurance ID and like the date of birth and like all patient information, and you need a different system for to do documentation to save your health information, and again for billing is another system. So I wish we could somebody could make like one stop shop and everything would be integrated together. So
Fantastic.
yeah.
So, Dr. Cherisha, I have a question for you, and you can choose to not answer this question in case you don't want to. So my question is that you have literally been there and done that. You have started off as a team member. Now you are a director. You are managing such a large team of physical therapists. Do you harbor entrepreneurial aspirations? Do you want to start up on your own?
Yes, so that is in the books. I think I'll follow Vaishali's footsteps. The plan is that my sister is actually an entrepreneur herself. She is, I believe, the president of Women's Indian Chamber of Commerce, and she's been pushing me hard from India. So she's helping me with my pitch decks, my all the content, the everything that Vaishali is going through in terms of business registration, SEO, marketing, ads. And then the main thing, her expertise is pitching. So I'm trying to get a little bit of motivation from her. I'm in that process, and while I'm researching, even with a full-time job, I realize exactly what Vaishali is saying, where I haven't found a platform which can do the billing, the intake, the documentation. Beyond that, also finding patients' metrics in terms of compliance, dropout rates, which is the biggest challenge, I believe, when it comes to outpatient settings or private settings, where people will do 1, 2, 3 visits and they're gone, right? So the compliance part of it is big. And so when I have been doing a few demos with different platforms that are available right now, I always find there's something missing. And maybe I'm asking for too much, but I feel like there should have already been a solution for this. And then now that virtual therapy has become such a big component in the past 3 years, if this particular software or platform could also integrate the telehealth part of it, then my life is smooth.
Okay, so I'd like to give a disclaimer to anyone and everyone who's hearing us that this is in no way a sponsored podcast by Remassis. While everybody is only seems to be talking about documentation, this is genuinely a very big problem for the physical therapy industry right now. For physical therapists in the US, this seems to be the biggest concern. And Dr. Cherisha and Dr. Vaishali are only echoing what we have heard from close to 300 plus physical therapists over the last few months. And we are genuinely and sincerely hoping that the product that we have built, leveraging telemedicine, leveraging AI, leveraging ML, would be able to solve a lot of your problems. Now we are moving to the last section of this podcast, just a couple of questions left. So I'd like to let everyone know who's sitting in the audience watching this live right now that we would also be having a recorded telecast across all social media handles, which can be shared by anyone and everyone. And in case you have any questions right now, in terms of audience, if you have any questions right now, you will see that there is a Q&A box as well as a chat box at the bottom of your screen. So you can just put your questions over there. I'll take them up. You can also let me know if you would like to ask that question to Dr. Vaishali or Dr. Cherisha. I'll take up your questions and have them answer for you. So one last question for both of you would be, so where do you see yourself? Where do you see physical therapy in general, 5 years or 7 years down the line? And where do you see yourself 5 years or 7 years down the line? So who wants to go first?
You want to go first? Go.
Yeah, I feel, I mean, yeah, if you consider, as a company owner, I would say I would like to have a team of PTs, OTs, and speech therapy. And even I wanted to expand like service areas because right now we are serving only in North Jersey. So maybe more Central Jersey, South Jersey, or maybe in multiple states. Yeah.
Okay, and along that line, I had another question. So, and this is a question for both of you. I almost feel like physical therapists are celebrity chefs in the sense that a lot of what you do and a lot of your physical practice eventually becomes, while US has some phenomenal success stories of physical therapy organizations which have spawned 200, 300 centers. Some of them have also gone the franchising route. But I still believe that a lot of people in physical therapy, my father is a patient of physical therapy, and there is one particular physical therapist that we go to. If he's not available on one particular day, he would not get the physical therapy done, but he would only go to that particular physical therapist. So how do you solve this problem where like if I go to a Michelin star restaurant, I would go there because that particular chef is going to cook for me, and I would not be happy if a franchisee of that celebrity chef restaurant is created, because I know that the same guy cannot be available at multiple places. So I feel that in that sense, there is a lot of loyalty associated with a certain physical therapist. And when you start scaling, both in terms of the number of patients that you're catering to or the number of setups that you have, how do you solve that problem?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it might be more like you have to clone yourself, but no, just jokes apart. You're right, because it's a person oriented profession where you form that connection with the client. And as you said, there have been times where they'd be like, no, I'm just going to see this person and not anyone else. So again, if there was an option of telehealth, at least having that at the back of the mind that, okay, even though this therapist is working with you, the therapist that you love to work with can check on you, free of charge. It could be free of charge, but check on you so that you feel that you're cared for. I am also a geriatric clinical specialist, just like, Vaishali said, her passion is geriatrics. My goal in the next 5 years is to solve more of movement related problems where patients or clients don't go to a doctor after a fall has happened or an injury has occurred, but more so before. So the big picture is not just PT, but more of wellness prevention as well. And that's how I think that we would be able to scale, to not just limiting to therapists, but to be able to involve families and patients, giving that the option that there's virtual health, there's an option where there's someone checking on you all the time and you're not alone.
Okay. So same question to you. Where do you see yourself, say 5 years or 7 years down the line?
I see myself, because I love teaching. I see myself as somewhere who can, of course, open up these practices, but be able to teach what I bring to, the value that I bring to my clients, so that it can be replicated by someone else. That way, if they say, oh, Cherisha is not available, I'm okay to see someone else who has been trained by Cherisha.
Brilliant. So, Dr. Vaishali, one last question for you is obviously there are a lot of physical therapists who are aspiring to start up on their own. We already have Dr. Cherisha as part of this panel who is planning to start on her own. So, what is your one message to these aspirational physical therapists who want to be entrepreneurs in the near future?
In my opinion, I think if possible, try to learn everything and do it yourself. in the initial period. Eventually you can hand it over to someone else and use the expertise. But once in and out of the system, if even say, for example, for billing, eventually if you hire someone to do billing for you, when you want to communicate with them, or you should know what they are talking about. You want to know how it works. So I would say just try to do everything by yourself in the initial period. Yeah.
So I think that's a fantastic piece of advice, not just for aspiring physical therapy practice owners, but also for entrepreneurs in general, that it's very important to be hands-on. And especially I've seen it. So it's also is very important to be hands-on, because if suddenly someone moves away from the organization, you need to be able to step in and be able to take care of that part for the interim time period before you hire a replacement. So thank you so much, Dr. Cherisha. Thank you so much, Dr. Vaishali. You guys have been amazing panelists. For me, this 40-45 minutes of discussion was probably more insightful, more empowering than all the conversations that I've had with physical therapists over the last 3 months. So I really appreciate your time, and I really appreciate your inputs. And
thanks
to
for
all
having
the
me.
people in the audience, I would request you to please join this community on LinkedIn called Physical Therapists in USA. It's a young community started by some very young physical therapy professionals who want to provide a platform to physical therapists across the US to voice their opinion, to share their problems, to share their learnings, and help all people in physical therapy grow together. So thank you so much to the audience, and thank you so much, Dr. Vaishali. Thank you so much, Dr. Cherisha. You have been wonderful.
Thank you so much, Arunabhs, for having us.